So thank you so much for joining today. I know it's getting late, but I think I have something really exciting for you today. So thank you for sticking with us. So in our agenda today, I'll start by introducing Bizzabo to you all, which this might be the best part of the session, I think, because Bizzabo is a truly amazing place and filled with amazing people, and we're building an amazing product. That, we'll move to a story about how our cloud architecture has progressed and its progression from adolescence to maturity, which is, I think, really a really amazing story. But before that, I think I'll introduce myself. So hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Doppelt. I'm 37 years old. I live in Israel. I'm Bizzabo's system architect. I've been working in engineering for almost 10 years now, which seems like a long time. But what's amazing about it is that I feel like I learn something new almost every day. So I started my career as a DevOps engineer a long time ago in an Israeli ad tech company, a company that was focused on serving commercials, banners, and pop-ups based on real-time bidding, all the good stuff that we like in the internet. It was a prominent industry in Israel in the beginning of the previous decade, so I hope you don't hold it against me. But I really quickly fell in love with the server-side aspect of engineering and just the way it's structured. And I ultimately got the opportunity to start writing some serious code. I feel like this opportunity really changed my life. I wrote my fair share of servers, mostly using Java and Vertex, Spring Boot. I just really always had a tendency to understand how things work from an engineering perspective. Just, I used to be that tears apart remote controls. So I started slowly drawing myself backwards into the application perspective, the infrastructure, and ultimately really the architecture, which is what I really love to do. Being in a position where most of the actual outcome of my work relies on other people by almost 100%, really made me a believer that it's just really mostly about human interaction, working together, having fun, challenging each other, collaborating, which really is key to building great applications. But the real star of this presentation is the Bizzabo R&D, naturally. And I would love to introduce you to them as well at a much higher level, but nonetheless. So the Bizzabo R&D is around engineers strong today, which is an amazing amount considering where we have started. It's spread out across 4 locations worldwide. So we have Tel Aviv, Kiev, Stockholm, and New York City. It's an amazing bunch of people. Squads, highly functional ones, comprised of both front-end and back-end engineers working together and supported by product managers, product designers, and researchers. And using this format, our goal is really to create a highly disciplined that is enabled and empowered to express themselves and their creativity as engineers through the Bizzabo product line. So there really is no other way for us to create such high velocity and create amazing products. So that's a little bit about us. So Bizzabo, what are we all about really? So the Event Experience OS, this is where we're currently at. And it's a platform that enables event organizers and attendees to experience events like no other application offers and nobody has done before. From all aspects, it offers the best first-party tools for the job, as well as first-class citizenship for third-party vendors and developers to really create and extend the platform using components. We really believe that the industry has a lot to give as well, and it's stuck like magic. It really works. In just one sentence, Bizzabo, our mission is to unleash the power of to create impactful and rewarding experiences. I don't know how long it has been since you guys have been to like an amazing in-person event, but for me, it's been a while, and it's always exciting, and I'm always anxious. Who will I meet? What will I see? Will I learn or will I network? And you really can be anything and anyone at an event. And our goal is really to maximize, to create delightful products that people like to use, whether you're an organizer or the attendee itself. And it's a really exciting mission. So just a little bit about our background, because it's been a while. Our founders met in 2012, right after university, and they really shared a vision of corporate events that people closer together. Because it's all about the people. You go and you mingle and you mix, and they built Bizzabo. And they just keep building, iterating, pivoting, listening to the customers, trying to figure out how to make events magic. And soon Bizzabo 100 conferences a week, and really showed no sign of stopping. At that phase, Bizzabo was more of an event management software. It was really in the beginning of the company's history, but still, it was amazing. And then COVID hit. So March of 2020, just about everything stopped, and I think that in-person events may have been like the first thing to stop after flights or something. But just the drive to bring people together endured. So we designed a brand new product and paired our in-person conference tools with a new virtual event management platform, and everything started to explode. Attendees skyrocketed by like 500%, revenue doubled, more funding, and more. Just really had a new vision and a new purpose, a future of hybrid events, and that's really what drives us today. Hybrid events are coming, and we're really excited to build it, and I would love to show you throughout this presentation how it works a little bit. So there really is a fundamental change. Ever since the beginning, it's been all about the people. I think we're building a tool for organizers, but ultimately the attendee is the person who really experiences, and we just want to make it more rewarding for everybody who's involved, whether it's the team that manages the content or creates the website, or the speaker who presents during virtual events, or even in person. And creating a hybrid OS, it's really about redesigning the platform from the ground up, because like an application, a platform, those are two different things, and an OS is a totally new different things. It's all about the big picture, unlocking data, being extremely data driven in order to also measure the event, but to know who's next to you and who you should meet. Seeing just every chance to create communities. People like to get together, and communities within communities that would endure the event itself. And I think it's really amazing, and it's going to bring people together like never before. So let's start talking some tech stuff. So I really want to take you down a path, a really real path, the very path that Bizzabo took a while back in the day, almost 10 years ago, before containers, before like almost anything, before anybody really leveraged the cloud. I feel like we used the cloud more before microservices and terms like highly available and event-driven, resilient, chaos engineering, all the good stuff that we have today. I think you get the point. It's a really humble story, more than anything else, and I think most companies or engineers can directly relate to it. In my opinion, it's just how it started, and is my hope is that throughout this journey that we'll embark, you'll see how we've matured, but still remained humble. So let's begin. Um, so how did we actually start? So I think like most things in life, from a necessity, right? So you're an engineer, you're a founder, you're a product team, you have some code, and you need a machine to run it on. I need something. Like I have data, I need a database to store it. They say that necessity is the mother of all invention, and I think it really showcases it. It's just something that you cannot live without. It's an immediate need, and it really served its purpose. So this is the very beginning, right? It's Genesis. It's kind of funny, right? Because it's so simple, but let's just look for a second on what we have in front of us, right? So we just have the bare minimum, right? And it's so simple. It's so naive. It's just a machine that's running a server and a machine that's serving some client code, and it's so tiny and still amazingly significant in its value. It's like a true dissonance. It showcases the cloud in a way that um, amplifies its immediacy. I want something and I can buy it now. And that's like AWS changed that forever, right? For anyone. Because back in the day, you used to have it shipped to your office or data center, and I don't know. It for sure wasn't immediate, but it was very, very simple, right? So, I mean, and I don't think we can do much with this. So we basically have a web server, an API server, and a database. Now, there's more customers, there's more traffic. What do we do? So naturally, right, we make it bigger. So we scale vertically, and scaling vertically is just basically the easiest thing we can do at this point. I'm not sure if it really solves the problem, but the next customer can now be onboarded, right? We have a bigger machine, we can execute more compute. Let's just go have a drink, right? It's so easy. And I think after in the cloud, it just really demonstrates how strong the cloud is, because you just want more, and there is so much more to give, right? There are massive instances. But are we really going the right way? I'm not sure, to be honest, but this is just the natural progression. Now things are starting to become a little bit more interesting, right? So in this phase of the evolution, we can observe some really fundamental changes. Going stateless really opens up the possibility to distribute traffic, whether it's evenly or there's some logic behind it. Just able to control it more, and I'm in control now. Horizontal scaling saves the day here for real, right? Our monolith can scale up based on just simple HTTP metrics or more internal like CPU and RAM metrics, but it's simple and it's really good. And this is really like where we see the first springs of auto scaling and high availability. And creating this in AWS is like fantastically simple, which is amazing. I think to summarize, this diagram basically showcases a pretty simple VM-based cloud architecture that would be deployable like on all clouds today, whether it's private or public cloud, or just using virtualization. It's simple, right? It comprises of some sort of auto scaling mechanism. In this use case, in the AWS use case, these are auto scaling groups that each manage a set of VMs that have an AMI or an image behind them that execute the same processes. There are loads can be layer 4, layer 7 ones and distribute traffic, and I'm able to scale um, vertically and horizontally. And we've separated the backend from the front end here. So we were aware that they behave differently. We're still in the monolith phase, right? This is before containers. We've added some databases for capabilities like Elastic for search and Redis for our cache to be able to serve content quicker. And I really think that this is the pinnacle of containerless deployment as it used to be. So it's multi-AZ, it's highly available, and that's it basically. It's long lasting, and I think until containers came into our lives, this was really like amazing. It used to be amazing to look at CloudWatch metrics and see everything grow. But we're Bizzabo as a rocket ship, and I don't think this is going to hurt for us. So, in all honesty, it's really getting us nowhere. I think that in retrospect, it's easy to say. After all, we're nearing the end of 2021, and really a lot has happened since. Besides COVID and besides the pandemic, so many amazing inventions and tools and open source have been created during this time. Some amazing people and amazing companies have been doing like really truly magical work during this period, and it's just really difficult to grasp how far we have come. And there's a part of me that truly wonders how startups are forming today. How do they start their cloud? Like, on one hand, I wouldn't be surprised if it was exactly the same, because these tools are tried and true, But I'm really interested in hearing different origin stories, because as trivial as it is, I don't think it's going to cut it in this world. So in terms of retrospect, I know that there are many ways that we can observe the situation, but I just chose three. So I think that using the cloud back in the day as a mechanism that will fulfill needs in an immediate way, it's just really a little bit being reactive. I think that today, using the tools and knowledge and experience that we have at Bizzabo, we are able to really understand the tools that we have better and create a vision that will really fuel growth and adhere to the business use case. I think in terms of consumption, understanding limitations of what you have in your hands would really get you further than actually just like scaling up. I think that applications that scale, you don't need to be, for instance, over provisioned, and it's just a really fine balance. And I think it's really worth investigating, and Bizzabo has definitely done that. And in terms of innovation, I have to say, for us, just the cloud, and it's any cloud. So Bizzabo is only deployed on AWS right now. It's not easy to understand that it's really, you cannot depend only on it, because there are other tools out there, and I think that in conjunction, that's the way to go. So lift off, right? There's a quote here. So Bizzabo is based on like values, and one of the values is "We Dare," which I think fits right into this slide. I'll just read it out for you guys. So it reads: "We encourage ourselves to dream big and swing for the fences. We dare to fail, but we always fail forward. The norm and embrace change. Who dares wins." I think that it's enough talking about the memory lane. Let's talk about how architecture drives the rocket that is Bizzabo. I just put a shameless SpaceX plug here because I'm a space geek myself. But we start talking about the architecture. There's just one more piece. I really want to describe the Bizzabo product line that will make up the hybrid events, so that you all understand what we are building. And this really serves up the motivation for everything that's coming up, right? So really hard at work solving the hybrid event use case, an event that comprises both on-site and virtual, a natural progression from the COVID situation, right? So Bizzabo used to be on-site only. We went virtual only, and connecting those two is an amazing to solve. And some of the, I'll just show you the product. You know what? So the first thing that you're going to notice when you get introduced to the new product is just to focus on the people. It's just a public area where people can interact with each other and see and feel the vibe of the event, understand where things are happening, who's talking to who's consuming what content. Imagine yourself like standing in the middle of a venue, like by the coffee shop, where you can see all the rooms and you can see people like moving, and we really want to recreate this capability virtually. So Bizzabo is engineering an amazing solution for the community where each attendee here represents a dot, and those dots are alive. They are, you are able to filter, able to aggregate them based on content and subjects, and it's powered by AI to showcase you who you should meet and who is interesting for you in the event, and what people are doing and what content you should consume. And it's just really a super high-tech solution, and the GIF is not working, but you're able to filter and the dots move and you get the picture. The next pillar is content. So you come to an event to consume content, and there's some, right, you're able to choose from multiple tracks, and there are multiple sessions, and it's all about video, right? So the agenda by itself is just like a list of sessions, right? And which each comprises of like a video stream. But it's so much more than that, because to keep an attendee engaged during a session, it's so much harder than just to make sure you have the highest video quality. Collaboration is the name of the game here. So chat, super interactive chat where you can create channels and really like a Slack-like experience. Just a toolbar where you can meet people and create video calls between each other in a hybrid way, schedule meetings with other attendees or with moderators or speakers or exhibitors. But truly where it really lies, Bizzabo is creating a top of the line video solution that's really will capture the attention and the minds of everybody who is using it, whether it's the speaker or the producer or the attendee itself who is consuming the content. The next pillar itself is really moments. It's not something that's still coming up. It's just, imagine like being able to take a mental screenshot of an experience that you've had in a virtual event, whether it's a cool chat conversation, meaningful, an amazing snippet of a session, something you really want to save and publish and showcase that you liked to the public, export it outside. Moments is where you're going to be able to really express yourself and be, a mini content creator during the event to others. It's really a cool feature. And ultimately, just information. Organizers and sponsors and everybody has so much information to give. It's just a static space. Do whatever you want. As an organizer, you can design it and showcase what's important to you, and grab the attention of your attendees while they register for the event or while they just learn about what's up and coming, who's talking, and what are they talking about. So that's the Bizzabo product. And I think that I'm not sure at what point we had a change of philosophy. It's a lot less reactive and a lot more planned and mature, shift left. Always question the requirements. So when we face a problem and we set requirements for them, like, why is it really needed? Is it really needed? Are we over engineering it? Understanding the motivation is really where it really is. Like, why am I doing this? What problem am I really solving? I think that over-engineering is also a problem that occurs frequently, also here sometimes. Just not throw it away. Throw code away. The best part is no part, keep it lean, automate everything, save everyone a lot of work by automating everything. Abstractions, as engineers and architects also, we really love abstractions, right? We like everything to be organized, front and back end, just give me interfaces. And we think that abstractions without enough examples are just wrong. You end up rewriting them or omitting them or forfeiting them for something else. And I think that's one of the main things that we are focusing on today. Designing your work ahead of time, it's a really big thing at Bizzabo. I think that by designing it and collaborating before you start engineering, you're able to ultimately increase velocity and reduce the actual time to deliver. All the challenges, all the pitfalls and walls that are going to be there when your code are going to be there when you design as well. It's just a question of how you collaborate and how you deal with it. It's also easier to collaborate on a solution before you have written something because there's less sentimental value. And just in general, collaboration. Better together is another value. You can check it out at the site, bizzabo.com. I think they're really inspiring. So, yes. All right, some numbers before we start. Again, to emphasize the difference. This number represents requests per minute, just an average request per minute to the Bizzabo application during 2019 before virtual, where attendees would interact with the Bizzabo application to see who's speaking and learn about him, understand where their next session is and plan with their colleagues that have on what they're going to consume. That's really a small number. This year, it's like a 36x 36. So it's a nice number. I'm not going to compare it to anything, but I think it showcases it's just a massive growth. It really needs something else. The application was built for a different use case, and the use case has changed, and the application needs to change with it. And moreover, in terms of high availability and resiliency, there is an absolute 100% dependency on the Bizzabo platform for the event. When you're going virtual, if the video is down, the event is down. And that also is a really big motivation for engineering something good, understanding the technology you're working with, and really solving some amazing problems. All right. So I would like to introduce you to a really high level, not architecture, more topology of the Bizzabo production environment. It's one thing that is obvious here that the main addition here is Kubernetes. So Bizzabo has introduced Kubernetes around 3.5 years ago. I'm not sure at what phase of Kubernetes it was, but in general, for those of you who don't know, Kubernetes is an open source system for automating deployment and scaling and management of containerized applications. So naturally, this required us to use Docker containers as well, which allowed us to package software to standardize units of deployment, development, and to ship them as one. So multiple microservices really act as one when interfacing with. And Docker containers are really the building blocks of Kubernetes pods, which are ultimately the single smallest discrete unit of compute, and are directly represented by microservices, right? And this is how it looks like when observed from really high. I'm going to bottom and showcase some front end, some back end, some databases, really try to emphasize how Kubernetes, together with the AWS cloud, gives Bizzabo at least what it's looking for. So let's focus on first. So by containerizing the services and orchestrating them with Kubernetes, we were really able to create flexible deployments on top of the cloud. We were able to engineer microservices better define data, better define service boundaries, because it's just so easy to multiply it, right? Once you have the tooling in place to manage microservices, and I'm not saying it's easy or hard, I'm just saying once you have the correct tooling for monitoring and tracing and visibility, it makes so much sense to really look at data domains in a pragmatic way and start breaking it down. And that's what Bizzabo did. So we have around 55 microservices. They're all written in Kotlin, which is a JVM language engineered by JetBrains. All services are cloud agnostic. So whenever we interface with the cloud, there's always a layer of abstraction, whether it's like a Bizzabo SDK that manages it, or like an HTTP interface, just to not create too much coupling. And by working with Kubernetes and microservices the way we do, it's just the granularity is really, really high. So each service can behave differently and does behave differently, right? In the Bizzabo application, there are two main personas that use there's the organizer who manages it, and he is a lot more, his presence is felt before the event. He's much more focused on security. He wants a lot of data consistency. And then there's the attendees, which are, when a virtual, and there's a session called Opening Keynote. And there are 100,000 attendees registered for the event. They will all log in 5 minutes before the session starts, browse the agenda, open the video, start collaborating with chat. Those services obviously need to behave very, very, very different. And level of granularity allows us to really tailor-make each service to its actual consumer. In a more deep dive on the back end, this is a pretty heavy slide. I think this slide showcases flexibility of the system and its true hybridness. So what we see in this slide is an application VPC, which is the virtual private cloud that all the Kubernetes clusters are deployed in, and each rectangle represents like a microservice. So microservice get their traffic from the Bizzabo load balancer, which holds api.bizzabo.com. That then gets propagated to the Kubernetes ingress controller, which is able to route traffic within deployments, stateful sets, and other Kubernetes objects based on just like layer 7 capabilities, so path or domain or headers. That's how services get their traffic. That's how we really route traffic between them. Services communicate between them over HTTP, naturally, but they also have message bus, which is not managed and provisioned by AWS. Bizzabo consumes Kafka from a third party. And then there's the databases, which are managed in their own VPC and provisioned there. They also use a hybrid methodology of managed services like RDS and Elasticache, which we'll go over in a second, as well as databases that are provisioned by Bizzabo through Kubernetes, through the operator pattern like Elasticsearch, which offers search to the services. Everything is encrypted, and I think that this is a beautiful slide, and this really showcases how you can mix and match native tools that the cloud provides and your own build tools to cater each use case. I don't think there's anything ad hoc here, but it really suits us. So it's a unified architecture. It's the same exact deployment in dev. Just in dev, we're relying 100% on Kubernetes in order to reduce cost and help spin up services quicker, because AWS instances with big that are backed by big snapshots take a very long time. So using this methodology, we are able to create the same services that behave differently in production and behave differently in dev. They have two different configurations, and using Helm, we template Kubernetes. And this results in something amazing. So in dev, as a result of a Git action, like an open PR, a developer gets a whole copy of the Bizzabo application just for himself in order to test his code. And when that branch is subsequently merged back into master, there's no footprint left. Everything gets deleted, and that code then gets pushed to production. We're not going to go into CI/CD now, but this architecture stands in dev as well. And that's it for this. Next, we're going to step into the front end. So here, this is where Lambda at Edge comes in. And I would love to talk a couple more sentences about that. So in order to serve large volumes of attendees, we decided to really create a statically served client and opting out from the server-side rendered option that Bizzabo has used in the past. I think that statically building a client, and we use S3 as an origin for the CloudFront CDN, really disconnects us from the need to be powered by compute to serve our client. And that really creates just a super fast, super scalable application. There are two Lambdas here. So token transfer. So Lambda at Edge are actually Lambda compute units that are deployed on edge nodes of CloudFront, and they offer different capabilities that Alexander talked about. They really allow us to hook into the request. So you can hook before the origin call or after the origin call or before the request, and really apply logic at any place there. And when transferring between Bizzabo domains, so we have multiple domains for keep the same token valid without using like a unified cookie. That's how when redirecting between domains, there's a backend component, the Lambda, that is able to set the new cookie for the new domain with the new refresh token and the new authorization token for the attendee, not requiring him to relog in and not requiring us to create just like a massive cookie that would hold all Bizzabo domains. And the rewrite Lambda at Edge function serves, so because the client is statically built and there's only one client, there's no compilation or build per customer. So when you browse to attendees.bizzabo.com.eventid, for instance, that static file doesn't really exist in S3. The rewrite function leverages the capability of Lambda at Edge to really rewrite the HTTP request, serve HTML from the client, which will then be returned to the customer. From there on, the configuration will be served statically as well from CDN, and the attendee can really get the personalized event page that the organizer has created for him. All this stands before Bizzabo backend that I've showcased in the previous slide. And the amazing thing here is that when I say white label ready, so a lot of our customers require the use of their own domain on top of the Bizzabo front end and back end, and this whole architecture enables a customer to use mycoolevent.com, proxy it by CNAME to the endpoint, and this should all work. All right, let's deep dive a little bit into video, since I've emphasized it's important so much, and how that provides us a scalable interface. So video is a crucial part in Bizzabo. There are two types of videos at Bizzabo. There's broadcast, which is what we're using now, which is where I cannot see anyone and you guys can see me. And then there's interactive, which is more like a Zoom experience, which is RTC. And it's really here a mix of first and third party components. So what we did is we created, and you can see that in the application VPC, a video management service and a media management service, which are extremely strong abstractions. And they abstract the lifecycle and the control of video, Bizzabo backend. and they proxy request and logic to either one of our broadcasting engines or one of our interactive engines. I won't go into too much detail about how each engine works, but the point is that it's loosely coupled and powered by Kubernetes. So in general, the backend, I think using Kubernetes and AWS allowed us, as I said, to really create extremely high granularity, a lot of asynchronous and event-driven. So Kubernetes is able to scale up not only based on CPU or RAM, custom metrics to scale up based on amount of messages in the Kafka topic, for instance. So if the service just sees that there's a backlog of messages in the pipe, that service can then scale up. In the front end, a modular approach. So each of the modules the other day I showcased when I showcased the product, like the people module, the information module, and the content, each of them are able to be embedded in the customer's own website. That enables our customers to build their own websites and use Bizzabo components statically. It's statically served, it's quick. I think in general, the unified authentication and authorization enables you throughout the backend and front end to really give roles to attendees. What are you able to do? Create really good applications. And buy versus build. So we haven't built everything ourselves. We use a mixture of cloud and third-party services. I think Bizzabo does it in a really good way. It gives a chance to engineer it, and we're not afraid to buy it. And it allows us to move really fast. Let's talk a little bit about databases. So this diagram showcases a little bit of our database architecture in more depth. Databases are crucial to the operation of any stateless application, right? And scalability is achieved, as in previous slide, in a hybrid manner. So we manage our own Elasticsearch and Cassandra clusters using the operator pattern. We find it very easy to manage our own Elasticsearch, and it provides us amazing capabilities and extremely scalable solution. On the other hand, we wouldn't dream of hosting our own MySQL, nor like Redis. Those are managed. RDS is AWS's managed MySQL service, and there's a primary node, and there are multiple read replica nodes which receive data from MySQL's bin log at a short delay, and are able to operate as a primary node. In the original primary node fails. That's how that database stays resilient. On top of RDS is a crucial component called RDS proxy, which is basically also something that was mentioned in Alexander's top presentation. It's a totally managed service, just serves as a connection pool manager. And the use case for this is just pretty simple. Kubernetes sometimes doesn't know how much power it has. So let's imagine a situation where you have a MySQL node that is able to maintain 100 connections. It's CPU bound, and MySQL just works like this. And you have 100 backend pods that require a connection to that same databases. It's going to be very difficult for Kubernetes to spin up 150 pods, because you're able to when you need, but those services were not going to be able to their databases and are ultimately going to fail the liveness and readiness check. What RDS proxy does, RDS proxy is able to handle a much larger volume of connections. All the services would connect to the RDS proxy. It just proxies the request and it manages them. It puts them in a queue to really leverage Kubernetes to scale up to immense sizes and still maintain connectivity to database connection, like to database reliant database that are really heavily constrained by connections like MySQL. We also use Redis for cache, and as I said, Kafka, which is managed by Confluent as a third party. So again, buy versus build, super granular and really hybrid architecture. So just to summarize, I think Elastic, start with so easy. It's a lot easier than it looks. It's extremely cost effective. Elasticsearch using the operator pattern deployed on EKS can actually be provisioned by spot instances, which are amazing. I'll touch on that in the next slide. We actually use our own internal logging solution based on such an Elasticsearch. In terms of MySQL, so because of the way Kubernetes is architected, and because of the segregation we have between data domains, there's a host per domain. This allows for small databases that are able to grow, and each microservice has its own, which has its own read replica, and it really creates like a loosely coupled architecture. It's highly available because of the read replica. In terms of Kafka, Kafka is used internally within Bizzabo as the backend nervous system. It's also exposed using sockets to the client, and it serves as messaging and really promotes event-driven architecture, which really is the key to really scale and deal with traffic spikes. But that's a talk for another day. I think Kubernetes deserves the last slide. I really wanted to, I can talk for ages, but I'm sure you guys can as well. I really wanted to showcase how leveraging AWS EKS with Kubernetes is amazing. Because what we do here and what I wanted to showcase is really the flexibility and the cost effectiveness. So Kubernetes ultimately requires VMs to provision containers on. And what we have done at Bizzabo, so Bizzabo uses a mixture of on-demand instances and spot instances. So spot instances are reserved capacity or spare capacity, excuse me, instances that AWS at a reduced price up to 80% cost saving. The caveat is that these instances are able to be taken away at like a 2-minute notice. So whenever AWS needs that capacity back, it sends an API call, and after 2 minutes, the instance is gone. So this would seem a little bit crazy, but it really promotes the Kubernetes use case, because Kubernetes is such a strong orchestrator that using it the right way, to Bizzabo at least, to be extremely effective and amazingly hybrid. So what we do is, so each spot instance represents a spot market that you can bid on. And what we do is we configure multiple node groups in Kubernetes to represent multiple auto-scaling groups. These auto-scaling groups by instant types in order to increase entropy and reduce the risk of losing multiple machines. We then, with affinity and anti-affinity, spread the load of the deployments across all these auto-scaling groups, or nodes, Kubernetes would call it. And using that, so each one of them is auto-scalable, yes. And using that, we're able to execute our production cluster using 80% spot instances and save a lot on cloud consumption. And really not be afraid to create more services, onboard more customers, provide really high quality video, really super quick like socket connectivity, and not be hampered by like increasing cloud costs. And I think with this slide, that is it. So thank you so much for enduring through this. I hope it was interesting for everyone. I enjoyed really much, and that's it.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Thank you. That was really interesting, and it feels like that you have a really mature architecture with a lot of components, and you're using a lot of approaches here, and even Lambda and Edge, which is very specific use case, covering very specific use cases. So I was wondering, maybe you can share what was the biggest challenge for you while building this architecture, and what was the biggest, like eye-opening experience?
That's a great question, Igor. So I think the biggest challenge was actually configuring Kubernetes in a really good way where we can create. So scalability is not only achieved through cloud, it's also achieved through our amazing engineering team able to develop using it. And I think that it took us a while to create the necessary infrastructure around Kubernetes in order to make it usable by everyone who joins Bizzabo. So we don't hire engineers that have previous Kubernetes experience per se, if you do anything, but enabling and empowering engineers to use Kubernetes when they engineer, when they test, when they create their dev environments, creating a really good CI/CD on top of it was the biggest challenge. And the eye opener, to be honest, I think we did it in a pretty good way. So Bizzabo is full CI/CD to production, and the actual eye opener was when the dev environment, in terms of VMs and pods, was like twice the size of the production environment. So we had to incorporate some logic to clean up the environments better and actually have dev reflect the actual work that's being engineered and not have it twice the size of the actual production cluster.
I see, got it. And earlier today, we were talking a little bit about infrastructure as a code. And what's your approach at Bizzabo?
So we automate everything. Bizzabo uses Terraform to provision the EKS clusters themselves, as well as any supporting infrastructure that is required by the Bizzabo application to function coherently. So those are instances, Elasticache, Redis instances, DocumentDB, MongoDB instances, SQS, SNS. So all the miscellaneous infrastructure, as well as the EKS itself with the VPC, networking, NAT, peers, everything is managed by and provision form. We don't manipulate the cloud manually at all in production cluster.
I see, got it. And that was one of the questions. How big is the team considering how much automation you have?
Talking about automation of DevOps, so the DevOps team in Bizzabo is really an enabler to let engineers do the work themselves. We want to empower our engineers to be able to move their code between environments and use it and debug their applications. So there's one DevOps team, an amazing team that enables engineers to efficiently write code and add monitoring and debug their environments. We feel like this is the only way to really create highly distributed and efficient teams.
Got it. And one of the interesting questions is how do you decide whether you want to build or support some tools, like, for example, like MySQL database or Kafka service you mentioned, or use a managed service?
That's a great question. I think hosting our own MySQL cluster is like a 1980s problem. I would never ever do that. But when it came to Kafka and Elastic back in the day, so what we did is we looked for the operator of Elastic or Kafka. An operator is a set of toolkit that is specifically written and overrides a set of Kubernetes objects and gives you additional functionality. And we know Elasticsearch at Bizzabo. We haven't had much experience with Kafka, not using it and not provisioning it back in the day when we started. So we stood at a junction, and since there was a lot of knowledge of using Elastic, we felt right and up to the challenge to try and provision it ourselves because the operator was extremely well. And on the other hand, dealing with Kafka and Zookeeper and brokers, and we didn't know how to use it and we didn't know how to provision it. So we just said, okay, this is too big for us. Maybe we'll try when we get some more experience. And we just went and did some research and purchased Kafka.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And probably the last question for today is, again, you have such an interesting and big architecture with variety of components. What are the next plans? Is there any potential to optimize it further?
That's an amazing question. So I think the first thing I want to say is that to us, if anything stands out, if anything is ad hoc, it's probably wrong. We want to be bog standard, advanced, complex, not. I think what's waiting for us is more of the same, just optimized in terms of scaling. I want to see all services scale up at least once a day so that I know the thresholds. In terms of databases, I really want to understand consumption better and balance compute power versus database power. And I just want to be more event driven. So more relying on Kafka and asynchronous communication.
Got it, got it. So, all right, Daniel, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much for sharing details of your infrastructure and the culture of your company. That was amazing talk.